Hey guys, welcome back to Mr. Janelle's Social 9 podcast. We are still on Chapter 3, Episode 4, and this episode is going to focus on how does the Charter affect you in the workplace. So we're going to focus on a few things here. We're going to look at a case where a woman used the Charter to seek equality rights in the workplace, and then a summary of how the Charter can protect workers from discrimination in the workplace. If you've been following along throughout this chapter, you'll know that equality rights is the big one when it comes to any form of discrimination. If you're following along on the Google Slides, stay with me. If you're in the textbook, I am on page 112 right now, reading page 113. So on the job with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. In 2001, 4 Ontario women and 5 labor unions launched a charter challenge, arguing that the province was discriminating against them based on gender. A 1993 Ontario law required the province to pay women and men equally when they had equivalent levels of experience and training. The 4 women said the province hadn't followed through on this promise of pay equity, and that they and their female co-workers were owed millions of dollars in lost wages. In 2003, before the court began a hearing on the case, the Ontario government agreed to pay female workers a total of $414 million in pay adjustments. One of the women who launched the challenge was Mary Kelly, a community care worker. And I'm going to read you her story right now. But when you look at that, so in 2001 was when they launched the challenge. But in 1993, Ontario had already had a law saying that there must be pay equity for when they had the same qualifications and levels of experience. So when they went to take them to court, the government realized we have no chance to win this. So before even going to court, they agreed to pay $414 million in pay adjustments. So this woman in the picture as well, if you're looking at the slide, her name is Mary Kelly. I'm going to read you her story. Traditionally, women have been underpaid for doing the same work as men. My union came to me and told me about the Charter Challenge. This was a chance to improve women's wages in the province. Why should somebody make more than I do for the same job? Think of that quote moving forward when you look about not just discrimination based on gender, but possibly age as well, especially for those of you getting ready to do your final project on what issues you want to talk about here facing you today. So you could be talking about ageism, possibly, when it comes to same work. The union asked me to make a sworn statement about my qualifications and wages. Sure, I said, I'd be glad to, because the government at the time wanted to just cancel pay equity. So I met with the union lawyer, Mary Cornish. We talked, and she took down all the details of my situation. Then they filed my statement. After that, they kept me up to date on the case, and then on the settlement. When we got $414 million for women, it ended up as back page news. I guess I was a little disappointed that the case never made it to a hearing. I thought it should be made public that Ontario's government had overlooked women's rights. But it was worth the effort. Anytime you can get more money for women in low-paying jobs, it's worth it. There are a lot of single parents out there with kids, and you can't make it on the wages they were paying women. And it felt good to know that you could actually take on the government. It takes it takes lawyers, and it takes a lot of money, but you can do it. An individual could not do it alone, though. The average person couldn't afford to hire Mary Cornish, or anyone like her. She put a huge amount of work into this. It had to be a group effort. So, when you look at her, we're really focusing on equality rights here. The fact that you can't be discriminated against for any reason, period. Okay, in this case, it was gender. But I want you to think of, for you guys specifically, age, and if there's any sort of discrimination going on in your lives at all. On page 115, one more story here. And then, actually, that's the end of chapter 3. So, do people have the right to work without facing discrimination based on their age? The story I'm going to read you is not based on kids, actually based on elderly, but the same kind of principle applies. In the early 1990s, Professor Olivia Dickinson challenged whether the University of Alberta could force her to retire at the age of 65. So that's the lady in the picture that we're looking at right now. The Charter entitles everyone to equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination. Again, we're looking at equality rights here. The professor said forced retirement was discrimination based on age. The Supreme Court disagreed with her. She lost this case. Because she had agreed to retire at 65 before she took the teaching position. So there was some fine print in this case where in her contract she had agreed to retire at 65 years old. So the Supreme Court in this case disagreed with her. Since the Supreme Court ruling, provinces in Canada have re-examined the legislation concerning retirement. Some provinces, including Alberta, have made it illegal for employers to force employees to retire because of their age. So even though she may have lost her specific case at the Supreme Court, because she took it there, it made provinces rethink how they were passing laws. So in Alberta specifically, it is now illegal to force someone to retire. Okay, so the last few assignments that go with this chapter, and I'm here to help throughout the process as well. The first one is Critical Thinking 3.3. The question is, and this is just a paragraph, remember, what do you believe is the most important charter issue affecting individual rights and freedoms in Canada today? So this could be for you, this could be for Canada in general, society, small towns, it could be anything at all. Do you think there's something going on right now that is a charter issue? You could look at, well, the big one here I have on the slide is coronavirus. So we're being told to stay home. Now, we're not being forced to yet, but you could bring up mobility rights. You could bring up how you guys can't vote until you turn 18, although a lot of laws affect kids your age. You could talk about the no-fly list and versus public safety. You could talk about any sort of discrimination with equality rights. You could talk about the legal right of a innocent until proven guilty, and the kids, the police searching lockers without evidence. Anything you want. If you can't think of an idea, try to look some up and ask me. I can help you as well. So that's the Critical Thinking 3.3, the last one for this chapter. But you're going to want to bring up at least one issue in the charter. Assignment number 4 is a tough political cartoon. Okay, not worth a crazy amount of marks here, but take a look at this cartoon called The New Constitution, and it's all right if you don't know what everything means here. You got a boat coming towards some mines in the water. So the boat, by the way, is the the former Prime Minister is driving the boat. There's a flag that says BNA. It stands for British North America Act. Don't really need to know it for this particular cartoon. Then you got the mines that say Energy Policy, GNP, which is Gross National Product. It's now GNI, but it's an old cartoon. Jobless, so people that just not having enough jobs, and inflation. Inflation basically meaning the price of products are increasing throughout the country, and people's wages should go up to match that increase. If it doesn't, then you got a big problem. So the mines are essentially challenges or problems that the government are going to be facing. And then the periscope there that's sticking up, it says the provinces. So I don't want to give you the answers here, but what do you think the provinces is doing? It's looking at the boat, it's looking at the mines, and what's the boat trying to do? And so the questions here basically, not a lot. In the title, this political cartoon from the 1980, the title is Full Speed Ahead. At the helm of the Constitution ship is Jean Chrétien. He's the Prime Minister at the time, Justin Trudeau. Pierre Trudeau, Justin Trudeau's dad, is keeping an eye on the explosive mines in the water. So actually, Jean Chrétien is the other guy in the ship who ended up becoming our Prime Minister, and now Justin Trudeau is Pierre Trudeau's son, who's Prime Minister right now. But really, you got A, what do the mines symbolize? How are the provinces portrayed? And then summarize what the cartoon says about Trudeau's focus on the Constitution. Like, what do you think it said about him as a prime minister? Or what was the cartoonist trying to imply in this cartoon during the 1980s? Okay, it's a tough one. It's okay. Try your best. Okay, the next assignment, a little bit, I don't want to say difficult. I hope you find some interest in this one. And I also put a link on the next slide with some more information, and it's also on the actual assignment that you'll get. But it's just a paragraph again, but when I say I want a well-written paragraph. So it's prisoner voting rights. So some background, you can find more as well. The 2004 federal election marked the first time all inmates, prisoners, were eligible to vote federally. The decision to allow any prisoner to vote in a federal election was awarded by the Supreme Court of Canada in 2002. According to Elections Canada, 9,250 of a total of 36,378 eligible prisoners cast their ballots, in the 2004 election. The right to vote for Canadian prison inmates remains a controversial topic. In 2004 federal election, one of the Conservative Party's campaign's promises was to strip federal prisoners of their voting rights once again. So the Conservative Party, when they were running in 2004, wanted to take the right of prisoners to vote away. So again, you're looking at the charter here, and what in there, gave them the right to vote to begin with. But the question really is, do you agree or disagree with the Supreme Court in this mandated this right? Now, you can have two sides of the story here because your opinion could be different than what you know to be true, right? When we're looking at your democratic rights and the right to vote, but it's more about what's your opinion. Type in Canadian prisoner voting rights, and you'll get more information as well, just to kind of elaborate on your opinion. So the assignment in a well-organized, I'd like 2 paragraphs here. Explain and support your position, taking into consideration the rights and responsibilities of all Canadians. It says you must include your outline with a clean typed, just a type one, obviously here because we're doing it on a computer, but 2 paragraphs I would really prefer. And in the link there, I attached some information that the government has provided, the most recent one I could find, but you're more than welcome to find different research to help you elaborate on your response. Assignment 6 that goes with this chapter is just a test your knowledge quiz. This will be in the Google Classroom as well. Obviously, you can use your book, but if you're trying to challenge yourself and you want to try for fun without looking at anything, this would have been a quiz on what are your different rights and freedoms. So basically, what do you know about your Charter of Rights and Freedoms so far and how they can affect you? So I'll put that in the classroom as well. You can use your book if you want, but if you don't want to, challenge yourself, go for it. And the last assignment, we'll talk about this more next week. We'll talk about all these next week when we have our live discussion. But in the last or second last episode, I read 5 different stories in Canadian history where the rights and freedoms of Canadians were modified, violated, or changed in some way. I want you to choose one of those 5 topics Or if you really want to choose a different one, a different group that may have been discriminated against at some point in history that you would rather do, but send me an email or a message if you pick a different one. So one of these 5 stories, so First Nations and the Indian Act, Canadian women and the right to vote, the internment of Ukrainian Canadians, the internment of Italian Canadians, or the internment of Japanese Canadians. So those are the 5 stories that are in the textbook, and also in the YouTube video that when I read through the stories. But you can choose a different one if you'd like. And what you're going to do is, so instead of a test in these chapters, guys, there's going to be one bit bigger of an assignment. So in this one, you're going to create a 3-paragraph essay. So that's still only 1 page. Okay, 3 paragraphs about one of the groups above. Your essay should describe the following ideas and include research to enhance your information. So 1, a description of the group involved in the case study. What was going on at the time? You can take stuff from the textbook, but remember that was only a paragraph in the textbook. You can find much more than that. How were their rights violated, changed, or during that time? Some of that's already in the textbook. You don't have to go crazy finding information here. And then what part of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms today would apply to the case? You've already kind of done part of this assignment. Okay, so you don't need to reinvent the wheel here. You've already done some of it. And the last part, your personal thoughts, opinions about the case. So you could do 3 paragraphs, you could do 4 to answer all 4 of those points. But do some extra research here and let me know where you found it, because I want to know more about these different cases. Okay? And that is it for Chapter 3. Okay, the next video will be starting Chapter 4. Talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.